Whether you're playing or watching football in action, you cannot help but realize that this is a rough and tumble sport with many chances of injuries, and yet they can be minimized. As a player, there are certain preparatory steps that you can take to make it a lot safer game. And the same is true of many sports. In these scenes of the Pittsburgh Steelers in action in a regular season game, you can see the charging power of the players and the hazards of the action. But today, in the public interest, Blue Cross of Western Pennsylvania presents this film which will show you 3 big steps to be taken to make it a much safer game at school and college levels. So let's visit the Steelers as we join them in a try for a first down for safety. With us today is Coach Bill Austin of the Pittsburgh Steelers to talk about the big steps in a first down for safety. The proper physical conditioning, a knowledge of the basic football skills, and the use of proper equipment. First of all, Coach Austin, how important is proper physical conditioning?
Physical conditioning is highly important in football. It is a game of moving on your feet. If you are unable to move on your feet, then you will not be a good football player.
Well, now, you're professional football players. You've got to expect them to be in condition. But how about high school and amateurs? Do they go through a more rigorous thing? What would you recommend for them?
Well, I think the importance of the high school athlete, the amateur athlete, to be in shape to play is just as important as it is in our business. We find that people that aren't in shape tend to get injured much more readily than the person that is in shape. He is not able to do the things properly because he cannot move to do them properly.
Now, I know you have what is a rigorous schedule that a Steeler goes through anyway, even though he's in condition? What is an average day like as far as getting in condition and keeping condition?
Well, we start our practice sessions out running, and we end our practice sessions running. We go through a rigorous calisthenics. Some people do calisthenics for loosening up exercise. We call our calisthenics conditioning calisthenics, such as grass drill and various other forms of conditioning exercises in the calisthenics part of it.
Push-ups and things like that?
Push-ups, sit-ups. We have a good one called grass drill where you're running in place, and the coach says up, down, and you hit the deck, hit the belly, bounce up and running in place and down and deck, down on the ground several times.
The question comes to mind. Now, the average high school student, an amateur athlete, all winter long is watching television or studying, and he has much less of this physical conditioning. Is there something they should be doing all year round?
They should be doing some sort of physical exercise all year round. We find that people who do exercise are much more alert people most of the time.
What would you prescribe? I mean, what would be a minimal thing that they should do?
Well, we find that handball, volleyball, tennis, swimming, or any form of athletics in that manner will keep a person alert and mentally fit.
A certain amount of walking and running every day?
Walking and running, jogging is excellent.
And I guess this would hold true even for older people. I mean, if you want to really keep in trim all through life.
I think so. I myself try to do some type of exercise 2 or 3 times a week.
Coach Austin, I've heard about the Exogenie. Could you tell us about that and what it does and how you use it?
The Exogenie is an inexpensive piece of apparatus. It was developed by somebody on the West Coast that is a combination of isometrics and weightlifting at the same time. I believe in weightlifting, and it's much more than isometrics. It is a machine that the rope goes through, and you can adjust the machine. Rope goes one side and comes out the other side, and you can adjust the pressure. There's all different types of exercises you can do with the machine, and I think so highly of it that I bought my wife one, and she daily uses it.
You have suggested many things that we might do in training. The conditioning for the average high school student, hard conditioning, starts around the middle of August. What about earlier in the year? What could he be doing to be getting in shape?
Well, the basic thing I think he can do to get in shape is run, jog hard jog for a while, run 100 yards hard for a while, jog again, run 200 yards, and keep building himself up to 400 or 500 yard sprints. In professional football, the Steelers we do a lot of 20-yard hard running sprints to keep the boys in shape and get them in shape. We find that the real long sprints, such as the mile, although they are good, we think that quickness is the greatest advantage that we have. We do many 20-yard sprints.
Are there any exercises that develop alertness in the use of hands and legs aside from running?
We do a form of agility drills. During training camp, we had these agility drills in the morning and the pad work in the afternoon. Now, in this period of the year, we do the agility drills on Tuesday morning, and we find that these drills are all for quickness and conditioning.
What's in the agility drill?
Oh, such as we have a high knee action drill. The players lift their knees high, directed by a coach, and on the word go, then they sprint for 7 yards afterward. On the way back, they face the opposite direction of the coach, and lift the knee action high, and then they are told to turn and go, and they come out sprinting. We have another one we call the wave drill, where they're not crossing their feet, they're giving directions, going back and forth, and then they come out of the drill on a run. We have another one called the crab, where on all fours, they go left, right, forward, backwards, and at the command, they come out sprinting. We have another one we call karaoke, where it's a sideward drill. You step out with one foot, the other foot goes behind, step out again, the other foot goes in front. We think this is good for agility.
Everything you suggest is a combination of arms and hands and thinking and I guess everything else, is it not?
Well, that's right. We feel that the arms and legs are interconnected, and the faster we can move the arms, the faster the legs go.
Moving aside from conditioning, which seems vitally important in football, I want to talk to you about the importance of the knowledge of the basic skills of football. I think this is especially true of the amateur, whether he be a player or a watcher. Let's talk first of all about tackling. What's the proper way to make a tackle?
Well, we think the proper way to make a tackle is to drive your shoulder through the opponent with your head up. It's been proven that you cannot injure your neck with your head up. The only time you can injure the neck is when you block or tackle with your head down.
And that's because it's forced down further if you hit him.
That's right. You'll never, I won't say never, but you can very seldom injure your neck by going back. You can't injure it with the head going down. So we try to teach the head up. After all, you have to see the opponent, so that's the basic skill of in tackling.
You talk about going through with the shoulder. How do you mean going through? Is that a mental way of thinking, as you're going to drive all the way through?
Well, we think if you keep your shoulder square and you drive your shoulder through into the opponent's midsection, we'll say, and you try to drive your shoulder right through the midsection and drive through with your feet, and we feel that it's a much better way to tackle, a much surer way, and again, less injury.
Let's look at that a moment, and while we do, let me ask you to briefly summarize what you've just told me, how to correctly make a tackle, because you, I think, have hit on 2 points, the head up and going through with the shoulder. Is that right?
That's right. We think if you drive through the opponent with the head up, then you'll make a much more sure tackle, plus you lessen the chance for injury.
I think it might be interesting, too, Coach Austin, to look again at this in slow motion, because I know many people get more out of it seeing it in slow motion. And while we're looking at a tackle made properly in slow motion, let's talk again about some of the don'ts. What are some of the things not to do when you make a tackle? You said don't keep your head down because you might snap your head forward and get hurt. What else should you watch out for?
You should watch out for a rounded back. You should always keep your back straight and level and driving through your opponent. If your head goes down, then the back is usually round. And movement of the legs and follow through with the tackle. Deliver the blow instead of receive the blow.
Is this not like learning to lift a weight properly? In other words, you keep your back straight and you use your legs to do the lifting in that case. And here you're suggesting straight back and hard drive with legs, right?
That's very true. There's a proper way to, if you lift weights properly, you can't injure yourself. If you don't use the proper technique, and there is a possibility of injury.
Now let's get on to another basic skill of football that's important to know, how to block properly.
Well, again, we think the importance of the head being up lessens the chance for injury. Also, the head being up, we can strike our opponent. Unlike some people, we teach to strike the opponent with the forehead. We think that is the proper way. And also with the nose guard, there's no chance for injury in the face. We think no opponent in football stands still unless you hit them. If you aim the head for the belly and they take a position to the right, then you'll pick them up on the right shoulder.
Isn't this a little hard in the neck sometimes?
No, but we don't feel it's hard in the neck if you keep your head up. We also have various exercises to strengthen the neck so a person won't injure the neck.
What type of exercise do you have for that?
Well, such as the old wrestler's bridge where you're lying on your back. A lot of players think it's silly, but there is a purpose for it, and the coach knows the purpose, and he asks his players to do the wrestler's bridge.
Now, one other basic skill I'd like to talk about. How about faking? This must be a big thing in pro football, and I'm sure it would be for amateurs to do it properly.
Well, faking is an art. A lot of plays are designed and are successful because somebody has faked with the ball. You have to be somewhat of a good actor to be a good faker and go full speed. Good fakers in football will be tackled by the opponents. And if he is tackled by the opponents, then the man with the ball carrier that's carrying the ball usually makes yards for you.
Mm-hmm. And are there any tricks, any little things that you ought to bear in mind if you're trying to fake?
Not so much, no tricks, just run hard and keep your head up and know where you're going and know why you're doing that.
Another basic skill important to know about is how to cut properly. Any thoughts on that?
Well, one thing in cutting is the use of the high knee action and bringing one leg over another, or planting a foot and cutting back to the inside, dropping the shoulder when you cut. If you drop the shoulder and while you're cutting, and if you're hit at the moment of cutting with a lowered shoulder, again, you lessen chance for injury.
Coach Austin, we've talked about two of the steps in a first down for safety: the proper physical condition, the basic knowledge of proper football skills. Now let's talk about proper equipment. How important is the use of proper equipment?
I think that we have to have the best equipment available. Everyone should have the best equipment to play the game of football.
Now, let's talk about amateur players in high school and what specifically should they use?
Well, number one, they should have a proper headgear and a nose guard if possible, mouth guard, excellent shoulder pads, and excellent hip pads. Many people try to play the game of football without hip pads and thigh pads, and in the end, they're sorry because they get injured when they don't use them.
How about a picky or something? Is it important to have any equipment in that?
I think more so important that they have equipment. And these pickup games, off-field activities like that, there is a great chance for injury, so I think it's very important that they have good equipment.
You've mentioned mouthpieces as used by high school players in particular. I know they're not used by the pros, but why are they important to high school players to have mouthpieces?
Well, quite often they do get a jar in the head. I don't believe the teeth are quite as strong as the professional football player. We do have a lot of professional football players wear them. We do not require it, but I think it's very beneficial and wise that the schools require the high schools to wear mouthpieces.
Coach Austin, football equipment has changed a lot in the last few years, and why is that?
It has not changed as far as the protective part of it. It always has been good and protection. The thing that has changed is the weight of it. They're doing things with the new materials out today that they didn't think they could do before, and they're making the player lighter with his full gear than they were in the past.
Do you have any suggestions about even further changes that might be helpful?
No, just the research that's going on in the game, trying to make the equipment lighter and still just as protective.
Coach Austin, I want to thank you very much, and again wish the Steelers a lot of success. Thank you for helping us out on the subject of proper conditioning, on the subject of knowing the basic skills of playing football, and also the use of proper equipment. In winding up this film on a first down for safety, presented in the public interest by Blue Cross of Western Pennsylvania, the community's own hospital care plan, remember these 3 points: proper conditioning, learning the basic skills, the do's and don'ts, and the use of proper equipment.